Everyone, I hope you're having an amazing day. So today we will be talking about Lightning app development from a development perspective. For platform Dev 1 certification, right, you don't need to know in-depth Lightning component development. You need to know when to use it, why you need to use it, right? So you need to know overview about the Lightning web development, and we will create some custom components as we go along. So today we will be talking mainly about introduction, and I'll show you how to create a very basic Lightning component and how we'll embed that to a Lightning application, which is like a container, right? Okay, so before I jump into Lightning web development, right, I wanted to talk about the web contents you can add to the Visual Force page, right? So when we talk about Visual Force page, right, it's like a page centric, right? And everything is the UI is rendered on the server side because it's mostly a server side development, right? You request something through a browser, and the request goes to the server, and the server returns you with an HTML, and then you do some other operation on the browser, let's say saving a data or something. It goes back to the server again, right? So you can also add CSS, you can also add images, you can also add JavaScript to Visual Force page as a web content, and these are added as a static resource, right? So to add a static resource, you need to create a static resource. The way you do it I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. You need to log into your Salesforce dev first, as usual. I often mention that. Please do not use your customer sandbox or production environment. You can use your free developer account if you're practicing or if you're learning for the first time, right? Okay, so when you log into your Salesforce org, it will take you to setup. If you're not sure how to go to setup, there's a get cog icon here. If you click here, it will take you to setup, right? Okay, you will reach to a page, something what you can see right now, okay? All right, so here you can type static resource, right? And you can go to static resource here, and then you can do new and create it, right? So for now, you see a lot of Conga stuff because I got a free 30 days Conga app installed because I did one Conga session. If you're someone who's interested in Conga Composer, please check it out. I put a link above. Please check it out. I've demonstrated how to create a invoice using a Conga Composer. Conga is a very powerful tool. We use it. I like it. It's amazing, right? Okay. Sorry, I digress. So you can go and create it new here, and then just take a minute, and you can choose a file or whatever file you want, and then image file, for instance, right? And then you can embed that to your Visual Force page, right? Or you can add CSS as well, so you don't have to do much changes to CSS for the look and feel. Sorry, to the Visual Force page for the look and feel. You can change your CSS and will render it, right? Okay, so that being said, let's jump into the Lightning development. Now, why do we need a Lightning, right? We have, you must be wondering, okay, I've learned Visual Force page. Now I know Visual Force page development, which is great. Now, why do I have to care about Lightning, right? So there are two reasons for it, right? So because if you remember, Salesforce now encourage people to use more Lightning. You can use Salesforce Classic, that's fine, but they prefer you to work on Lightning more. So if you're someone who wanted to build an interface, or if you wanted to build a component or anything on the Lightning, right, you need to know Lightning web development. It's important. And if you wanted to develop something which is mobile ready, right, and then you need to learn to use the Lightning web development, right? But if you're someone, let's say your team is integrating, or let's say you have a team of React JS, right, React JavaScript programmers, or Angular, or maybe Vue JavaScript, right, and you wanted to embed that to a blank to a container, which is like a Visualforce page, then I would encourage you to stick to Visualforce page, right? Or if you are a team where you have 5 or 6 Visualforce page developer, and you wanted to extend the Visualforce page developer, then stick to Visualforce page, right? Because Salesforce is not gonna kill Visualforce page, right? And it still works, right? So for that reason, if you're someone who is doing only Visualforce page development, who's not concerned about the mobile ready kind of stuff, right? Then yeah, please stick to Visualforce page development. That's fine. But if you're someone who wants to develop stuff on Lightning page, and Lightning is the future, right? It's built on the top of the Aura component, right, which is an open source. And yeah, so the thing that you need to remember about the Lightning web development is that Lightning web development is not difficult, right? And it's pretty much, it uses its markup language. It has its own markup. I will show you what I mean by that. And if you're someone who don't want to use the code, you can also use Lightning App Builder. That's another thing. I will like to show you how to do that as well without using a code. But if you wanted to build a component, right? Because there's a difference between a Visualforce and the Lightning, right? Because Visualforce, it's page-centric. And Lightning is app-centric. Means it's based on a component bundle, right? So what happens is, in case of Visualforce page development, right, when you interact with the page, right, the page goes and talks to the server, and server, does the stuff, right? Because the page is rendered on the server side, but whereas in the Lightning, it's rendered on the client side, right? It's like a JavaScript on the client side and an Apex on the server side. Because when an application requests a Lightning page, right, the server sends a bundle to the browser, and that's where the JavaScript comes in the picture. JavaScript renders the UI. Anything you do, it's mostly the JavaScript. So what happens in Classic, Salesforce Classic, let me talk about Classic. When you go to an account tab or contact tab, every time you click on that, it fetches the data from a server. Every single time. But in Lightning, it's different. It loads once, right? Then whenever you go to contact tab or let me tell you what I meant by that. Let's go to sales tab, right? Okay. So now what happened? It refreshed the page, right? So all the data gets cached into the cache, right? So now when you go to accounts, it's not getting a data from a server. It's getting a data from a cache. Sorry. So it's coming from, or you can say from a collection, right? From a programming terminology, or a cache, whatever you want it to call. So if you click on contact, it's not making a request to the server. That's why, you remember in my previous demo, whenever I do a change, I say, I need to refresh the page so that the cache get refreshed, the latest data gets stored into the cache. That's one of the reasons why I was talking about it, right? Yeah, and this is pretty great. I mean, because you don't have to talk to the server, and this makes the development pretty easier, right? So that's why the Lightning is, and plus is mobile ready, and you can these are the Lightning screens, right? This is not a classic screen. This is a Lightning screen. And the way you can create a new Lightning app is by going to the Lightning App Builder. I'll show you how to do that. So let's jump into a bit of hands-on. I hope that difference is a bit clear to you. So the first thing, right, the Visualforce page is page-centric. Lightning is app-centric, right? It's a component-based architecture. It's an event-driven architecture. It's not MVC-based. Right, Visualforce is based on MVC paradigm, but whereas Lightning is not based on MVC paradigm, it's based on event-driven architecture, right? You remember I talked about event-driven architecture when we talked about platform events. If you haven't watched it, please go and watch my platform video, development video. I've covered a lot of stuff there, right? And I've talked about subscriber model. I've talked about publisher model. Right, so I've covered in detail. So I'll put a link below in the description column for that video as well. Okay, all right. So let's go to setup first. The way you can go to setup is by going to the Gearcog icon and go to setup. And as I mentioned, right, you don't have to know in-depth Lightning development for Platform Dev 1. You just need to understand, where you can use it and what are the different features that's available when you're working with the Lightning web development, right? Or the Lightning user interface, right? Okay, so what we can do, so we're gonna go to App Builder. So this must be under user interface, I presume. Right, so Lightning App Builder. And so we can go new. And then, so it got two things. One is app page, home page, and record page. So let's go to the record page and go next. So we'll say test app and object, what object you want to contact. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to talk to beer sold. Next, we're just going to, the way you want the header and left side, which way? Okay, let's choose this one. Right, and right, so now you can see you can add these all components to your Lightning page. You can add flow, you can add answer next best action, you can add analytics, you can add list view, you can equip, you can add recent items. So you can add recent items as well. Right, you can add recent items here. And at the same time, you see there's something called custom. You can create a custom Lightning component and drag and drop it here as well. But one thing I would like to mention, right, before you use the Lightning, you need to understand one thing, that it will not work if you are not using custom domain, right? So what happens is that, let's say you register your free org, right? And you decide to do a Lightning development, which is great. Now, you created a component, and for some reason, you come here and say, look, what's going on? I just created a component. Why can't I see it? Well, that's because you are not using a custom domain. So that's one of the requirements of the Lightning. So the way to do that, you need to go back to the setup again. So what we can do, so we go to, let's go back here, leave. And let's go back to setup here. Right, and the type domain, excuse me, so my domain, right, and then you will have to, there will be an option that, create, write your domain name. So I've created this domain, train demo dev, right, that's my domain for demonstration purpose. You can, it will ask you to enter your domain name, and then you can check it if the domain is already, if it's already taken, then you can't use it. If it's a new one which no one else is using, you can use that, right? It's pretty straightforward. So you can't use the Lightning without making custom domain. That's the first thing, right? But otherwise, you will keep on, wondering what's happening, why I can't see my component. When I develop the component just now, it should, be displayed under the custom tab, but I can't see it. That's one of the reasons why you can't see it, because you haven't activated the custom domain, right? Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, and now let's go back to here. So you can add your the custom components to the record page, or you can add to the main page, right? So what we're gonna do, we won't dive deep into the nitty-gritty stuff of it. So what I wanted to show you, I just wanted to show you how the component works, right? I just wanted to demonstrate a very basic Lightning component, just like a hello world, and we drag and drop it and see how it looks like right on the screen. That's pretty much all we're gonna do. And next day we talk about events and other stuff, right? Because I don't want to go very detail into Aura component and difference between that and kind of stuff, right? Because that's not really because it's not really needed for a platform dev to know in depth. If you want me to make the Lightning in-depth development course, I'll make it later when I get time. But now let's stick to platform dev, what is required, right? Okay, so what we're going to do, let's go to developer console. We're going to write some code. I'm just going to write a very basic Lightning component. Okay, so to go to developer console, go to developer, go to this gear Conga icon, go to developer console, and go to file. Don't worry about this Apex class. If you remember, we did this for a previous lecture when we talked about Visual Force, right? Controller extensions. So okay, so let's go to new and go to lighting component. Let's name hello world, right? Let's say lighting page. Okay, you know what? Let's choose record page, because that, you know what happened when I take this one, right? It means that this component is available for any object record page. It doesn't matter account or contact or whatever. You can drag and drop this component to the record page. So just to keep it simple, just keep it there, or you can do the other one as well, right? All right, now pay attention to the thing on the right hand side. This is it's controller, so component. This is what the component bundle contains, right? It contains a component, it contains a controller, which is JavaScript, helper JavaScript, style, documentation, render is the JavaScript file as well, design, SVG, right? These are the 8 things that this, the control component framework contains. Lighting component framework contains, right? I won't go detail into it today. Just remember that the component is the most important one. It's the mandatory one out of this bundle. Okay, so what we're gonna do, so if you remember in Visual Force page, we had Apex page, right? In this case, it's Aura component. That's how we started. And then we're gonna do paragraph. You can write HTML here, right? We can, okay. Hello world, right? Okay. And let's save it. Right, now what we've done, we created a component, right? Now component won't work without a container. Component, because Lightning development, Lightning web development, right? Lightning component is based on the component model, right? It's an app-centric model. You need to put a component on a container somewhere, right? Or that's what the Lightning application comes in the picture. You need to put the component onto top of the Lightning application so that you can use this. Right? Think about it like a container. If you're someone who came from a component development background, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you need to put that in the container, and that container you drag and drop it to your frame or whatever, right? Okay, so let's go to file, and let's go to, okay, before we go to Lightning application development here, I wanted to show you where this resources is located. Right, so this resource is located in a namespace. By default, it will be C. If you have your own custom namespace, you need to use that. I'll show you. I got some Conga resource as well, so I can show you what I meant by that. Okay, so to go to the location of this component, what do you have to do? Go to File, and then open Lightning resource. Right, you see this? This is all Apex Conga 4. These are the different namespace. Right, but for us, we are relying on the default one. So if you scroll down, you see the hello world. It says C hello, right? So C is our default namespace, and for the Conga, it's APXT Conga 4. That's the namespace, right? So what we're gonna do? So we gonna go here and go to new, and we go Lightning application. So we can say hello world app, okay, and just submit. And we gonna use the app here, C. If you remember, we have C. It's hello world. Oh, sorry, I misspelled it. Instead of hello world, I said hello world. Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, it just all right. Okay, now we close it. All right, save it. Okay, so you see the difference here. For application, right, and for a component has the design. You see the different. See, component has one thing which the application do not have. That is design. You see, doesn't have a design. So yeah, all right, okay. So we created this. Now what we're gonna have to do. We need to go to one of the Lightning app, right? So, and then we drag and drop this component to the record page. That's all we're gonna do, right? Because we were saying that, okay, available for records, right? That's what we wanted. And has record ID means it's the ID associated with that object. Okay, so available for record home, right? All right, so let's go here and we go to, okay, let's go to campaign, right? And let's go to, okay, let's go to contact. And we go to Peter Jackson. And we go here. We're going to go to edit page because it will take you to the Lightning App Builder. Right, and let's see if we have this component here. Here you are. We have this hello world. So what we're going to do, we're going to drag this somewhere. I don't know where we can drag it. Okay, so we have this. Okay, and save it. Activate. And we're going to, yeah. Okay, assign as a default org. Next, save. Okay, so activation, save, close, okay, back. All right, we need to refresh it. Okay, let's see, let's refresh it. There you are, hello world. So we drag and drop the component to the record page. There you are, it's available. That's all simple. That's all pretty much. It's all about the component development. It's pretty straightforward, right? You need to understand the fundamentals for platform dev and to know how to create it. So we're gonna do. So tomorrow we're gonna talk in detail about these, the bundle, the bundles, the controller, helper style, documentation. I'll just give you a bit more detail about it. For now, just remember that its bundle contains the 8 files, components, which is .cmp. The controller, if you double click on it, it will be a JavaScript file, right? So don't worry about that for now. So it's a JavaScript file, right? It's a world controller. Helper is a JavaScript file as well, right? And style is not a JavaScript file, sorry. Documentation, then render is a JavaScript file as well, right? So we'll talk more detail, in depth, about this, in our next lecture, right? So this is all I wanted to cover today, just to give you an idea about the Lightning app development or Lightning web development, what you can say, because Lightning is something which I would encourage you to embrace it, right? And then because because going forward, Salesforce might say, look, we're gonna stop the support of Salesforce Classic. They might do it. I don't know when they're gonna do it. Maybe in 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. So it's good to know if you're a developer out there how to do Lightning web development. If you're someone who is from React background, or if you're someone who's from JavaScript. If you know JavaScript, then it's fantastic. Lightning will be pretty straightforward for you. You need to know a little bit, tips and tricks associated with the Lightning development. But that being said, not having a knowledge of JavaScript will really help. Or if you're someone from Angular JS who's using TypeScript, right? You're most welcome to, learn Lightning web development as well. So yeah, because I've started using React for other stuff, because I do projects on the side for my own stuff, for my own comfort, I would say, like to make my life easier, because I like to automate stuff. Automation is the future, right? You got to automate stuff, because I don't like to have manual intervention much, so I automate a lot of stuff at home for the software I use, so it makes my life easier. So I use React.js. I've started using React.js for a couple of projects I'm developing for my own stuff. I've used Swift for iOS app development. So Java I use too at times. Right, yeah, I've used different programming languages. C# I used to for my work, and then Salesforce Apex. So, yeah, if you're a developer out there, you know what I'm talking about. You might have used different programming languages. So that's the beauty of a developer, right? You get to work on different technology, different stack. If you're a full stack developer out there, you know what I'm talking about. You can, if you're a JavaScript developer who uses React or Node. So, yeah. All right, okay. So enough about rant, enough about the stuff. So yeah, that's all I wanted to cover today. So we talked about a bit of a web content, right, which you can drop it to the Visualforce page as a static resource, right? when you use, and then we talked about the Lightning, why we need to use the Lightning, because if you're coming from a Salesforce Classic background, right, every time you access an object, it does the server refresh, because the page hits the server. The request has to come from the server, but in case of Lightning, it's not the case, because the data come from the cache, right? Because it loads first time when you loads the app, and then everything get cached, right? That's why if you do some change, you need to refresh your app to see the latest data, right? And then we talked about a bit about a Lightning app builder, right? You can go to setup, and then you can create a Lightning app builder, and you can create an app, and right, and then you can also create a Lightning component. So the way to do that, you go to developer console. First you create a component, and then the component you need to place on top of the Lightning application, and that will be reflected in when you go to the Lightning app builder, and then you drag and drop the component to wherever, if it's a record page or if it's somewhere else, right? But before doing any of the Lightning component, you need to have a custom domain, because if you don't have a custom domain, it won't work. Because what happens is that for some reason, if you forgot to enable the custom domain, and once you create this this specific component, and if you go to the Lightning app builder, it will give you a message that you need to activate a custom domain, right? Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover today. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are. Greetings from New Zealand. Adios.